Morning and welcome to a very windy Derbyshire. Today we're about to explore some of probably the most important World War II air raid shelters that we have in the country, and that's not an understatement. These are obviously the Stanton Ironworks air raid shelters. That obviously Stanton is a name that we associate with certain types of air raid shelters, and so we're actually going to explore Stanton's own ones that used to be on their site. Trust me, this is going to be an amazing explore today, and I hope you come along with me. More importantly, enjoy the history lesson, because it's just an amazing piece of history. So stay with me and I'll see you on the other side. Come on. Sometimes you get to experience a place that defines all the values of this channel, that of conservation, preservation and historical exploration, but more importantly a place that defines this channel's motto, namely because history matters. So with all that said, these air raid shelters could be some of the most important in all of the country, because they're Stanton shelters, but no ordinary Stanton shelters. These are actually the shelters built for the workers on the site of which this precast air raid shelters were built and exported all across the country. Situated between Nottingham and Derby, not much is left of what will be known as the Stanton Ironworks when it started life back in 1845. Originally occupying a 5-acre site, the company would be mostly known for making cast iron pipes, pig iron, pre-stressed concrete pipes, columns and all other castings required, mostly by gas and water companies. But even more interesting was that its cast iron tunnel segments would be used in the construction of the London Underground and the Mersey Tunnel. In World War I, it produced large numbers of shell casings and gun barrels, but it was during World War II that this site would play a vital role in the protection of civilians and army personnel alike, when it produced concrete air raid shelter components that could be built in any length, consisting of precast concrete arch-shaped units bolted together to form a shelter that could be easily transported anywhere across the country. So with all that said, we find ourselves exploring the very shelters that the Ironworks built for their own workers. Built around March 1940, it's the longest shelter that's been noted as a potential experimental design due to its length and shape. With the Ironworks closing in 2007, these shelters, for its context, could be easily said to be some of the most historically important air raid shelters of World War II. And by documenting them, hopefully they will never be forgotten. Hello, so we're back. Hopefully you enjoyed that history lesson. Now, I'm just going to sort of talk to you about the layout. It's a little bit windy today, so I'm going to try and be as brief as possible on here so we can actually get into the main air raid shelter, and I'll show you where I'm located now. So, really, the Stanton Works would have been that direction and there, and as you probably noticed in the history lesson, the site was huge. Now, located here are two air raid shelters, and then we've got this one which you can't miss on this mound, this deceptive mound, which is an amazingly long air raid shelter. Now, let's try, now I know that these are flooded, so these tiny ones, which is a shame, and as you can see down in there, that is very, very flooded. In fact, actually let me get my torch out and I can show you it properly. Well, I'll show you properly how flooded it is, more importantly. Okay, so you sort of get an idea. I mean, that's there's a steel door at the back and it is very flooded. So yeah, we'll take a look over here. So you've got these two entrance points on each one. There's one there, there's one there, one there and one there, and they've also got vents to them. So from what I remember, I don't think you can access them easily. In fact, this one is heavily overgrown. Might have to drop down onto this to show you. And again, very, very flooded. Excessively flooded. There's a vent here that even gives you the idea of how flooded this is, because you can see my reflection from the water. So now let's have a look at this one, which, whoa, God blimey, takes your breath away a little bit, because it's actually in good condition, but it's very, very slippery. Now I think that this one is also flooded to a certain point, but we can only but see. Yeah, it is. Okay. Let's try and get on some wood. Yeah. So, if I bought my Wellingtons, I reckon we would have been able to get across that, but you can see its layout anyway, so not really disappointed by that. And actually, so there's some toilets on that side that mirror this. So these would have been the toilet cubicles. And there's a little loop there, and I wonder if that was just used as a screen. Obviously, we've had your chemical toilet in there on either one, and then as you look across, it would have been mirroring the opposite side. I've got a funny, I'll have a look at the opposite end of that one, but as you can see, there's another vent. You've got this corrugated steel here. I mean, great little warm-up shelters for the main event. Which it really will be, trust me. So yeah, there you go. Like I said, you're not really missing out on much, and it's probably over a foot. So again, if I bought my Wellingtons, we would have probably gone through that, but I suppose in the instance of this, is there much point when you can see the opposite end? So yeah, more importantly, I want to see if we can get to that. So yeah, let's try and negotiate our way out. Oh, God, it's very slippery and slimy, and you wouldn't believe it because we've had excessive sunshine. Let's have a look at this frame. Beautiful green frame for the entrance. Substantial air raid shelters, these. Even these two. Oh, come out. So what we can do really is just parallel this shelter, again looking down onto the vent. Oh, the wind's stopped. That's brilliant. Sun's come out. Good timing. I say that, there's a little bit of wind. Sorry about that if it comes out in the camera. Another little vent. And then I'm going to walk around. So what you're looking at, so I'll just remind everybody just in case. So we've got two separate air raid shelters here, and our entrance points are running parallel here. So you can see with the eye of faith, this would have gone across entrance or exit on both really, and then the same on these. So without even trying, you've got two air raid shelters. And then if we look down here, now forgive me because it is slippery and it is wet. Yeah, okay, we'll try and get down there. The most important thing is that the bigger one is a lot better condition. So, yeah, here we are at the opposite end. There you go. So we were obviously down there. And you get to see the little toilet recesses that are here. And again, huge amounts of mud. Oh, I can put my foot on that, that's good. Yeah. And then in that one as well. And they're still in remarkable condition, really. Again, there's a loop there. I wonder if that was to help screen them. Sometimes you just have like a courtesy sort of a blanket across. Sometimes it depended, or you'd had like wooden doors, slats, etc., etc. Really did depend. So yeah, basically 4 toilets, 2 at either end, which is what we've normally seen before on these. And yeah, in very relatively good condition. So I think we documented them well enough, haven't we? Let's get out, come on. Right, okay, so before I show you the main event, again, just a quick reminder of the location of these. Obviously, this is the main shelter. Again, it probably looks better from above. Obviously, I don't have a drone. And then you've got your 2 smaller shelters here with ventilation points. This one is completely flooded, and this one probably, if you wore some Wellingtons, you could get to the other side. But really, because of their layout, they're so easy to sort of see from one end to the other. And really the only other thing of note is obviously these little, I would assume they're sort of vent points, but extremely well constructed, built for purpose, and as you'd expect as you would expect from the people who actually built them, who are literally located on this site. I think they're so amazing. Before we go into the main event, because I'm calling it the main event because it's pretty special, I want to show you up on here. These are the vents that are they're roughly the same diameter as the larger ones that are on the smaller ones, but as you can see, when you look into it, you'll find that the actual shelter itself is relatively staggered. But let's go explore that and I'll show you what I mean. Right, so here we are. I've never been more excited to enter an air raid shelter in my life, I don't think, just because of the history that this contains. So this is the main Stanton shelter for the Ironworks, and it was rumoured, I mean obviously I mentioned in the history lesson, but it was rumoured that this one really was more of an experimental design. I could be wrong on that, but that was what the rumour was, because of its unusual layout. It's not like those 2 that are over there. I mean, those 2 smaller ones give you a perfect idea of what normally a Stanton would look like, roughly. But you can see there's this concrete, almost like a blast wall, I would assume. And then I would probably guess that there might have been some sandbags. But here we are, everybody. This is what exploring is truly about. And history, as we enter this. Remarkable. I suppose the question is, have I brought the right torch for the job? And I think we have, everyone. I was a bit worried as to what torch to bring with me today, to be honest, because you never know, and especially when you see information or you see pictures, you can never really judge. And yeah, I think we're going to be all right, which is brilliant. So we're at the far entrance, which is the one that's closest to the smaller 2 air raid shelters. And the first thing you'll notice is that it's actually in very good condition, considering there are bits of graffiti and obviously the demolition of the Ironworks, which is almost null and void now. But you can see this. Now, I think that is for a cable run. And the fact that's still there in that condition is simply incredible. So what I would assume is that is for some form of cabling. I would probably guess that it's lights. You can see a few little holes in here, again probably, so that would suggest that maybe the lights ran across, and then what would be at the side? That's interesting, because that looks something to do with more external power. No idea on that. But if we look at it face on, you think, okay, this is very small, but let's keep moving, because it goes in a very unusual shape. Now, it's a shape that reminds me of Grove Park, because it's blocks within blocks. However, because this is Stanton's own shelter, they're basically made up of smaller shelters that were put together and then made into corners. So what I'm trying to say by that is that there's sections across sections. So you've got one section, then you've got another section linking, then a separate section. So it's almost like if you were doing a Lego and you wanted to try and do a number 5, you can't do it necessarily in a straight line, so you have to put the bricks next to each other on top. I hope I've made a good analogy of that. That was on the fly, so excuse me for that. As you just noticed, this was actually the one that we looked at from above, which was a vent. And I'm amazed at the remarkable condition of those. I think obviously the cables would have wrapped around, but for what exactly, I don't know. If we look down here, you can see a door frame, and it's got that green colour, so that is more likely going to be one of the original doors that would have been in here. And again, walking round. See, again, if you looked at that, it's hard to think that that could go to the side, but it does. Like I said, they're just tiny sections, crisscrossing basically across that ridge that you saw. And again, if you were looking back, you wouldn't know that it's going through that side. Its design is actually very, it really gives you that perspective of what it's about. Here's one of our entrances. Very overgrown. There's no way I would have been going through that one today. And then here, you can see probably what would have been a toilet cubicle again. Obviously, by default, they're normally near the entrance. We've seen that in many of my videos, that normally right by the entrance you'll get a toilet cubicle. This one's got a little vent, although I'm not sure if that would have been a vent in the way that we would know it. Probably more to do with the toilet, I'm not sure on that. There's little spiders. Hello, mate. The wooden door frame is still here, which in itself makes that very interesting, and the condition, you'd expect it to have gone by now. There's a bit of gutter in there, which would suggest either cabling would have gone through there, or maybe the foundation for some benches, because we're assuming that these benches would have been on the side, as we see with all of our other shelters that we've explored. And again, the condition of these is absolutely amazing. Looking up again, these vents being capped off, it's amazing. But they're just small sections. They're just these tiny little sections. And here we are. Look at this. Have a quick look down here. Amazing. It's just this. The layout is beautiful, absolutely beautiful. I mean, there's bits of graffiti as well, but I was expecting it to be way worse than this. But for one of probably easily, as I have argued, one of the most important Aerate shelters that you can find in this country, because of just the fact that it is made by the company in where the company is situated, that alone makes it. Clearly considerable burning that's been going on in this section. Beautiful. You just see, if you turn the light off, you can just see these beautiful bits of daylight creeping through. Amazing, absolutely amazing. I could document every single vent for you if you wanted. I probably am doing that without even realising it. Wow. There's a bit of daylight there. Does that mean we're at the end? Nope. That brilliant. I'm just going to come back to this. It's just so deceptive. You keep thinking, you see a bit of daylight and you think, oh, it must be near the end, but it can't be. Wow. How brilliant. I mean, probably the practicality of it is probably up for debate because we're hardly underground. I mean, you know, when you see it, really you're just below the surface. Oh, there's a huge draft coming through. Yeah, you're just below the surface. So really it would have been the ground that they would have overlaid on top, which really would have been the thing that probably would have given you that indicator of protection. And maybe, again, like another toilet cubicle block, again, this gives the illusion of, we noticed at other shelters, the reason why sometimes they're in unusual patterns, or what we would describe as unusual patterns, is because if there was an impact of any sort, it can be blocked off, so anybody can get through. In other words, if there was a direct hit here, in this part of the shelter, you've got two different exits that you could potentially go through. And obviously because of the design, it's not necessarily going to impact the rest of the shelter. So for that, and its design in that case, it proves as a practical purpose. It just keeps on going. I didn't actually think it would go on this long. Oh no, look, here we are at the end. Turn my light off. Wow. Yeah, look, now we're at the far end. Isn't that amazing? Isn't that just so cool? It's so overgrown around here though. See, this is our exit. Or entrance, but I mean, like I said, it's just amazing. I mean, that sort of seemed to feel like it went on for a little bit longer than I felt actually, which is a nice feeling, because you sort of, sometimes you think, oh, it's not going to take that long, but actually it did. It was a nice size. What I think we should do is we should head back in real time again, and you can get to see it from back to front. Does that make sense? I think that's pretty cool. So what we'll just do is we will just head straight back in. Now this is how dark it is. Bearing in mind there's natural light coming from that. Oh, I'm just glad I bought the right torch today. It's the Goldilocks torch. Not too bright, not too big, you know, just enough light to get through. But yeah, remarkable. And again, it's interesting how each different section, there's some sections that have got more graffiti than others. You know, it's a interesting thing, you know. Oh, there's a wasp or somebody that's got trapped in here, bless it. God, can you imagine if you're an insect or a bird or something that's got trapped in here? Well, I have no idea how to get out. Just remarkable piece of history. I mean, you know, out of all the years of exploring, the many years of exploring, I needed to come and check this place out. I needed to see it because of just the history alone that it contained. And even though it's a hollow air raid shelter, and that's a husk really for all intents and purposes, it is just such a work of art in its own right. It really is. And it's, you know, like I said, you know, we tend to sometimes get a bit bored of our air raid shelters because sometimes the size, they're not too big, so you know, but in my eyes, they're remarkable pieces of history, and this one has to be one of the best in the country. And I don't just say that, you know, and it proves the point that this by no means is going to be the biggest air raid shelter that I've ever explored. But it is probably one of the most significant, and I suppose that's how you have to balance it out. You know, how much of a history lover are you out there that you would come all this way, or even if you're local, that you'd actually head to this one and understand the significance of not only its design, which can be, like I said, it's similar-ish to other designs, and it's a Stanton. But when we talk about the historical sort of context, I mean, you know, what's that? You know, what does that mean in this? How can you know, for me, as I said, it's easily one of the most important shelters that you can find in the country. And it's nice because you've got two that are next to it. Even though they're flooded, you've got to see one of them, and that gives you a rough idea of the normal layout of what they would have looked like. Like I said, we have explored Stanton shelters on this channel, and I'm sure probably many of you watching have probably gone into a Stanton shelter. But to actually, again, be here at the place where they were being made. Amazing. And the really cool thing I felt was you got to see the photos of this place. I mean, that in itself is amazing. So obviously in your history lessons you saw, you got to actually see photos of this place actually being built, with the workers digging the trenches and then filling the sides up with concrete and placing the caps over it. Absolutely amazing that you've got that on top of this, which just really adds to the story of this shelter. There we go, we're right at the end. So how long did that take? I'll turn that thing off. So looking at the camera, I reckon it's about, normal walk, about 8 minutes each way. So nice really. You know, good section, good 8-minute walk from one end to the other. Oh, brilliant. I am so pleased that I've come here to see this. You know, and if you're any World War II history lover of any kind, you've got to come here. I mean, even though, like I said, they're not the most extraordinary air raid shelters you're ever going to see in your life, to know what this meant on a historical context is truly, truly amazing. So, yeah, let's head out. Come on. Okay, so I think to end on, the best thing to do is walk parallel, so that we're literally walking across these air raid shelters and you get to see it from a side perspective. And yeah, look at this. So let's go and have a look. Again, I do apologise for the wind, but yeah, look, this is one of our entrances that we'd gone past, with our toilets just on the right there. I mean, does it get any better than this when we talk about history? You know, really, does it? I mean, that this is still here is just the most incredible thing in itself. You know, I was, like I said, coming here and sort of thinking to myself, well, I'm a bit dubious as to sort of what the condition would be, but I'm impressed, really impressed. Also, there you go, hardcore exploring, cut my finger, and some damn thistles. Yeah, it's alright though, I'll live, don't worry about it, everybody. But yeah, so let me just show you this. There is a section that's open or exposed here that gives you an idea of what we're walking under, and you can see there's hardly any ground covering it at all, really. There's one of our vents, and that alone is quite symbolic of the fact that these really just touch the surface. But obviously, because of their design, you know, I think really bar a direct hit or bar a hit that probably would have been in the smaller vicinity, you would have been still well protected. I mean, these Stanton shelters are thick concrete. It's just a shame that obviously it never looks like when they've turfed them over there's enough turf that can potentially protect you, but as I said, they're just designed, I think, really for quick access, getting in as protection, because as we know, obviously Stanton Ironworks didn't just do air raid shelters, and obviously it had just an important role in World War One as well. So, you know, it played a vital role throughout, and obviously would have been an important target for German bombers because of its industrial sort of his heritage, really. Again, looking into one of the entrances, you know, entrance to some person, exit for another on these types of ones. Oh, brilliant, absolutely brilliant. And the vents are amazing themselves, aren't they? I mean, if you look, they are just in amazing condition themselves. Like I said, it's such an interesting thing to sort of note. And really the fact that all of this has been pretty much demolished, and at one point this would have been thick with smoke and industry and the sound, and now it's just these industrial estates that we commonly see throughout, especially in where we live. It's quite common to experience them. So where are we? There we are. Here's where we came out of. Brilliant, absolutely brilliant. In fact, this one's the best condition in terms of externally anyway. Look at that. That's brilliant, really good. Oh wow, so pleased I came here. Really am. Well, do you know what? Oh, let's go in. Oh wow. Well, in immortal words of Phoenix history, thank you so much for coming along with me. I didn't do anything fancy today. We explored it, didn't we? And we hopefully documented it. I know that obviously explorers will come and go to this place and they will make an amazing job, and I'm probably merely just one of a small group of people who will document this place for hopefully generations to understand how important these shelters really were. So as a recap, the smaller shelters were both flooded, one excessively flooded. The other one, like I said, if you were Wellington, you could probably walk through it. But the good thing about that was you could see from end to end on that. And then obviously our main piece de resistance right here. Amazing. We walked through it and we walked back. And like I said, I didn't want to do anything fancy. Hopefully it came out really well in the camera. In the immortal words of Phoenix history, as I mentioned in the history lesson, never of the words "because history matters" means truer than a place like this. I'm so glad I came here. I'm so glad I got to document it and take you along with me. So if you're ever in the vicinity in Derbyshire, you should check this place out. And you should understand the historical context of it as well. So yeah, feel free to spread the word of the channel. Much love to all of you out there. And I'll see y'all very soon. Take care. I'm going to go back in. I'm going to have a nosy. I might as well just enjoy it for myself now. So I can't take you along with me because you've already seen it. Come on. Take care, everybody. Cup out. Woo.